Growing calls for President Obama to fire a top aide. Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, in a New York Times article, bragged that he manipulated the press to get support for the controversial Iran nuclear deal. Rhodes boasting how he created an echo chamber to make the deal seem better. This deliberate sleight of hand flies in the face of President Obama's vow to be open and transparent.
I'll make our government open and transparent.
One of the things I want to do is open things up. I want transparency. I want accountability.
The more transparency we can bring to Washington, the less likely it is that Washington will be run by lobbyists and special interests.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
This is the most transparent administration in history, and I can document how that is the case.
GOP Wyoming Senator John Barrasso helped write a letter to the president calling for Rhodes to be fired. Senator Barrasso is here to go on the record. First of all, the president promised transparency, but let's just get your thought on it, although I guess I can guess it. How transparent was this Iran deal?
Not at all, and that's the big problem when you see the Deputy National Security Advisor, one, manipulating the process, and then two, bragging about it. Shows terrible judgment, but this is part of this arrogant behavior by this White House. Remember, Jonathan Gruber said they got the health care law passed over this because of the stupidity of the American people, and now he's saying it's the dumb press. So this is the arrogance of this administration. They're afraid to tell the American public the truth. And my concern is the safety and security of the American public, which is what the Iran deal is all about.
All right. I have your letter here. You signed it with two other U.S. senators calling for him to fire Rhodes, Mark Kirk from Illinois and John Cornyn from Texas, another U.S. senator. How do you know this isn't just like, I mean, I've been around Washington long enough that a lot of staffers think they're a lot more important than they are, and they sometimes begin to think that they're the senator or the president. I mean, how do you know that this isn't just some sort of, goofy staffer running his mouth to the New York Times Magazine?
Well, the president, who, as president, really was the least prepared in modern time to be the president in terms of foreign policy issues, has chosen to have advice from people who are least prepared to brief him, and that's what we have here. The president said with regard to the Iran deal, it's this or war. I mean, this is pure fiction. And I think we're much more likely to be in war with Iran with a nuclear weapon. They're going to be a lot stronger 15 years from now. They're going to have a nuclear weapon. There's going to be no time for others to prepare. And so we are, as a nation, I think, more prone to war because of a very bad deal based on fiction.
All right, do you think the president's going to fire Rhodes?
Oh, I doubt that he ever will, but I just think that the president is, again, using poor judgment to take advice for somebody who really doesn't have the background in foreign policy to be able to advise him at a time where the world is very dangerous. We now know that Iran's going to get $100 billion.
I think they got most of that now. I mean, that's done, and they can spread around the Middle East and help Hezbollah and everybody else.
All the bad players. So they have the money, and they have given nothing back. They're doing ballistic missile testing now. And, before this deal was signed, they weren't allowed to do that, not just because of the United States, because of the United Nations.
I never could figure out whether or not under this deal, of course, most of it's classified. We're sort of, the American people are sort of the last to know. We don't get to know anything. But I always wondered, to what extent this deal prevents Iran from sharing technology or getting technology from North Korea, for instance. I mean, North Korea needs money, so I'm sure they'd be happy to share technology, and they do nuclear tests. And
what did we all know about the Iranian deal? We're supposed to have inspections 24/7. Now it looks like it's 24 days. It's just not able to be verified. The president wanted this so bad that he got a bad deal. And what we hear from this article is that they manipulated the press and the senators who voted for it. I voted against it, but you have many Democrats who are on board with this because the president said they had to because of the fiction. It's this or war.
So where do we end up?
Well, we end up with the president continuing to take bad advice. Look, you know where we end up? Jimmy Carter said it best. He can't think of anywhere in the world that the United States is in a better relationship with a foreign country than we were when Barack Obama came into power. Barack Obama has been a failure in the area of foreign policy. We've seen it with the reset of Russia. We've seen it in Syria, where Assad is stronger now than ever in spite of the red line. We see it in Iran with a terrible deal that I think puts us more at risk. And our closest ally in the region, Israel, is more at risk because of the actions of President Obama.
Senator, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.